brownies, it's me, Shaunic of BrownGirlsStyle.com, and today I want to talk to you guys about rubber bands. I've heard a lot going on out there in cyberspace about rubber bands to use or not to use. I'm going to give you my take on rubber bands, and it's really up to you to decide what's going to be best if you choose to or not. I'm just going to tell you where I'm coming from with them and the choices that I've made and the result of them. Now for me, I have been using rubber bands on Ashay's hair since she was probably 6 months old, okay? From my point of view, rubber bands are not bad. It's not the rubber bands itself. It's how they are being used, which is what results in damage and things like that. My success with using rubber bands has come from, one, you want to make sure that the type rubber bands you use are appropriate for your child's hair. The reason I say that is because rubber bands come in different sizes. And for example, like I purchased, like this is an assorted jar of rubber bands, right? Which means that they're all sizes of the rubber bands in here, because some rubber bands are large, some rubber bands are small, some rubber bands are medium size. So say for instance, if your child has very thick hair, a lot of hair, and you're using a small rubber band, it's not going to have as much expansion, and you'll probably only be able to wrap it around that ponytail maybe once. I'm talking about a small rubber band. But if you use like a medium sized rubber band or a large rubber band, you may be able to wrap it around twice or 3 times, you know. So what I'm saying is, like, if your child has a little hair, then the smaller rubber bands are probably going to be best, okay? You have to kind of just play that by ear. That's number one, the size of rubber band you use. Number two, with rubber bands, you have to make sure that you don't put them in too tight. Like if you put a rubber band in your hair, you pull it and you see her scalp is rising and you see bumps or anything like that, you're pulling too tight. They're on too tight. So you have to be careful and make sure you don't do them too tight. And that's aligned with using the appropriate size rubber band, because if you use one that's just right, if you wrap it around 2 times or 3 times, that will be enough. But if you have to wrap the rubber band around her ponytail 5, 6, 7, 8 times for it to be snug, then the rubber band that you're using is too large, okay? So you want to make sure that the rubber bands are, you're not pulling too tight. They're not too tight in her head. That's number 2. Number 3, you want to cut the rubber bands out of her hair. Don't pull them out, because when you pull them out, then you're pulling her hair. There's more than likely you're going to pull a strand and break it. So you have to be very careful. I'll show you exactly how. In the beginning, I used fingernail clippers, because with the fingernail clipper, it's very small and you know that you're not going to cut her hair. So if you have the rubber band tied around her hair, what you want to do is pull the rubber band away from her hair. Pull it away from her hair, and then you want to clip it. You know, never pull the rubber band off of her hair. Never ever do that. You should only use a rubber band once, because once you've used it, styled it, she's worn it, you're cutting it out, right? So that's another thing. You don't want to leave them in her hair too long, because like for my daughter's hair, if I leave a rubber band in her hair for more than a week or so, then more than likely her shorter strands will start wrapping around the rubber band, or loose strands within her ponytail may get tangled in the rubber band, and then you'll see hair attached to that rubber band, because with kinky, curly, coily hair, it's going to curl up. So if you have that rubber band in there for a long period of time, eventually some strands are going to get caught in there, and then they'll end up, you know, being broken off or so tangled in there to the point where you got a couple of strands attached to your rubber band and you're trying to decide, oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to have to cut this hair off because it's a knot? You know what I'm saying? So don't leave them in too long. The only exception that I do have to the length of leaving rubber bands in there is like when she's wearing braids and you use the rubber band to hold her beads onto her braids. Now those typically can stay in as long as the braids are in, but you just want to be cautious that before you use rubber bands that her ends have been trimmed, because when they haven't and they're curling up or they're splitting and all that, those tend to wrap around the rubber band as well. So, you know, there is some caution in that as well. So another tip I would say is that alternate between rubber bands and goodie ponytail holders. As she got older, I leaned more towards using the goodie ponytail holders simply because her hair was so thick that using rubber bands just almost got to be like a chore, because you know the larger ones were either too large or too small. So it got to a point where it was like, you know, these goodie ponytail holders are going to be best. So if you prefer to use goodie ponytail holders from the get-go, you know, that's fine too. But normally when you're dealing with a toddler or a smaller kid, they don't really have enough hair to use those big or even the small size goodie ponytail holders. So, you know, if goodie ponytail holders are working out, you know, for your smaller child, then, you know, by all means. But I just want to kind of address the issue of rubber bands being bad, because I don't believe in that. I don't believe that simply because I've used them effectively and successfully without having damages, without having issues of, you know, damage and breakage and things like that. So the most important thing is how you use them, if you choose to use them. And if not, then hey, that's good too. Then you don't have to deal with being cautious about it. But even with using goodie ponytail holders, there is some caution to everything you use, you know, because you still can't leave those in too long, because I found leaving goodie ponytail holders in for a long period of time, the hair still tends to wrap around it. So it, you know, whatever you choose to use, it's all in just being very careful and meticulous about, you know, how you use it and, you know, what process is going to work for you. Rubber bands that I've used, in fact, I've had this tub for probably over 5 years. It had 1,000 assorted rubber bands, and I still have a lot. And another thing is, let me see, I also like to use the color rubber bands. These don't even have the little label on them anymore. These were bright rubber bands. This was a 500 pack, and you know, have all the little colors in it. I think that's so cute. I was only able to find these at like CVS or something like that. But I think those are so cute for the younger girls, you know, to kind of add a little, you know, something a little different in that thing. So I'm showing you pictures to prove at 6 months. This is how her hair looked with rubber bands in it from 6 months forward. I've always used rubber bands. So that's my take on using rubber bands. I hope that you found my tips useful, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. And please make sure you click that red button down there and subscribe. We love to have you every week watching our videos. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys later. Bye. Take care. Shaunic.